Welcome to Human School. I'm your host, Dr. Patil Armenian. After 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and 2 years of fellowship, I thought I was done. I did my time, got my degrees, and now I was just gonna live life. Well, think again. Some of my greatest schooling has come after my formal education was complete, and it keeps on coming. Join me at Human School, where we can learn together. I'm an emergency physician and medical toxicologist working at a large teaching hospital in California. I'm also a mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend. Whether you work in healthcare or not, you too lead a busy life. Together, let's work on how we can thrive in all of our real-world roles. On this podcast, we'll dig deep into what it means to constantly learn and evolve, to be human. Every other week, I'll share some of my personal stories, interview inspiring people, and offer tools to help you learn more about yourself. Being on the front lines in the ER, you learn a lot about life and death. And though my philosophies were born in a busy emergency room, they can apply to anyone trying to live a joyful life here on Earth. Please listen, share, and subscribe to this podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at Human School Podcast, and feel free to let me know what topics or guests you want to hear about. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Human School. I'm back from my, I would say, almost 6-week-long sabbatical and break from the podcast. In one of the next episodes, I'm going to talk about my sabbatical and what it meant and what it can mean for you in your workplace and life. But before we get into myself, I recorded a really amazing interview last week that I really wanted to get out there. This is going to be our second techniques episode, which is basically where we talk about tools and techniques that can help us in our daily lives. I had the immense privilege of interviewing Erin Claire Jones, who is a human design expert and someone that I've followed on Instagram for a long time. She is so special because she can explain really complicated and difficult concepts in an easy to understand way. And the tools she has on her website are, similarly very easy to use, just like the things she describes. For this episode, I would really recommend going to humandesignblueprint.com and putting in all of your birth info and pulling up your chart so that you can follow along, so that you can really get as much as you can out of our interview. It's free. She does have a product called the Blueprint, which is like a book of everything about you and your human design. And we do have a discount code Human School on her Human Design Blueprint website. All the information will be in the show notes. But even without that, you can just get your chart basics for free and follow along. I bet a lot of what we're going to say is going to resonate with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me on Instagram, and I'm happy to get the conversation going. So let's jump into our chat with Erin Claire Jones. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Human School. I am so excited to have a wizard of an expert on with us today, an expert in human design. I'd like to introduce you to Erin Claire Jones. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I've been following your work for quite some time, and I have to say, learning about human design was one of the most useful things for me in the last few years, not just to deal with my work life, but also with my personal life and figuring out how I work the best. So I'm really happy that you're here to explain it to everyone. And I'll give you a fair warning. None of the listeners of this podcast probably have ever even heard of human design.
Amazing.
So would you mind telling us actually what human design is?
Of course. So, human design is a system based on your time, date, and place of birth that reveals how you are uniquely wired to operate, whether it's at your work and relationships, at home, and just in life. It gives us each our own roadmap to finding more flow in our lives. And it's so specific. We each have our own design. And so, it really helps us step out of all the ways that we thought we were supposed to be doing things and to step into a way of doing things that often feels so much authentic and true for us.
That's such a great way to put it. How did it even come about in the first place? Because somebody just
So,
invented?
I know it's a crazy mystical story, and I'm just warning you for those that are new. It has been around since 1987. The founder's name was Ra Uhuruhu. He's no longer alive, but he basically had a very mystical experience where he was walking home one night in Ibiza to his home, and he heard a voice, and the voice said, "It's time to work." And then for basically 8 days and 8 nights, he channeled the system, meaning he just received all this information, and then he spent the next 20 years building it out. And the way that he received the information was that human design brings together the wisdom of many systems, from astrology to Kabbalah to the I Ching to the chakra system to quantum physics, but it all kind of comes together to give us this blueprint to how we operate at our best. And I just want to acknowledge that the origins are heavily mystical, and so I think I work with plenty of people that love woo woo stuff like I do, but I also work with lots of teams and lots of skeptics. And so I think that what's important to me is whether the information is useful and not whether it's true or whether I have to convince you of it. So I think what I often encourage people to do is just like see how it sounds and see how it feels and see if it feels useful and supportive to them. And my experience now, having worked with many tens of thousands of people, is that it describes them to a T and is so deeply useful, even in the moments where they're like, I don't want to believe this. This is so weird, but like, I need to know everything because it resonates so deeply. So it is pretty wild that we could know this amount of information based on our time, date, and place of birth. But it's also been pretty amazing to watch the way that this knowledge can really transform your life once you really play with it and experiment with it.
Well, I think that's what I noticed is that at first I put in my human design information, and actually I did get my blueprint from you. And as I started reading it and looking at it, I thought, well, yeah, that describes exactly me. I just never knew how to put it in words.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the I think the magic of human design, and also why I think it makes sense to a lot of people that aren't typically open to systems like these, because it often gives them language to things they've always felt and always known to be true but never had language for. And so it's just like there's such a level of like recognition where it's like, oh yeah, that's like so me. And I just have never allowed it. And like, I'll look at other people's designs and I'm just like, none of that makes sense for me. Like it's just, it's so specific. And then mine is like, oh my God, it makes completely sense. So it is so wildly specific in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Now, where do you begin? What's the first step when you're pulling up your human design chart?
Well, the first piece is to look up your chart. You can do that at humandesignblueprint.com. And, we're actually about to make it a lot easier, more beautiful to do it, but you'll look it up and you'll see a wild looking chart that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So just let that go for now. And you want to look at what your type is and just know that there's so much beyond type, but this is the perfect place to start. And in human design, there are 5 different types. So it's kind of the first categorization, and then it kind of, builds out from there. And the type is the piece of our design that speaks to how we best use our energy, but also how we can create the most aligned opportunities for ourselves. So I'm happy to either go through each type, or I could also just go through your type as an example of what one could be.
Well, I would say let's go through each type and then maybe focus in on my type to give
Cool.
people an idea of what it would sound like.
Yeah, that sounds great. So the 5 types are manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And so manifesting generators, I'll talk about them collectively and then differentiate them. So, these are the types that are doers. They have such tremendous energy to build, create, and make things happen when they are genuinely lit up, excited, and satisfied with what they're doing. So one of their biggest lessons is to prioritize their satisfaction and trust that doing that will give them more energy and will benefit everyone around them. These people can often burn out because they kind of use up all this precious energy saying yes to everyone and everything, and then just like feeling so depleted at the end of the day. And a big lesson for them, like I said, is doing what they love and what brings them joy will only give them more energy. Manifesting generators specifically are often quite multi passionate. They might like moving their energy between many different things, might like moving very fast and skipping some steps along the way. And both of those types, generators and manifesting generators, are meant to let things come to them and wait for their gut response to kind of light up before they go after something. So they are meant to be gut driven and not mind driven. Projectors like you are really here to be leaders, guides, advisors, teachers, not here to do all the doing. You may find your energy very naturally ebbs and flows. So, building space and rest into your days is likely very helpful. One of your biggest lessons is that your gift is really in how you see and not how much you do. You might find that you're very innately sensitive to and wise about people and very drawn to kind of learning things that only deepen that knowledge. And your strategy as a projector is to be recognized and invited in. So you are not meant to chase after a thing. You're meant to pay attention to where you feel the most invited in and recognize for who you are and kind of lean into those opportunities. But to also recognize that people cannot invite you unless they see you. So one of your biggest lessons is to allow yourself to be seen, is to be visible so the right people can kind of resonate with your energy and come to you. How does that feel to you before I keep moving?
Well, now that you say it, it totally makes sense, but it's very actually hard for me to be seen and to let people see what I have to say. And I always used to feel like, well, I shouldn't talk unless I have something to say. And just
Mm,
now I've gotten into thinking, okay, well, I think I have something to offer. So I should let people know that I have ideas and opinions. And then on
yes.
the flip side, when you said, you have to wait for the invitation, that resonates with me so much because the few times where I've, for example, tried to just set up a meeting with a boss to just cold give my opinions on something that nobody asked for my opinions on have not been met well. And so now I realize, okay, well, if let's say the boss wants my opinion, he or she will ask me and then I'll give my opinion.
Exactly. And the thing is that, you can say the exact same thing, but like often what happens with projectors is they see so much. And so it's natural to want to share all the things they see. But if they share the things they see before they're invited in, it can just go over people's heads. They like don't even get it. And then it's depleting for the projector and it's not even helpful for the other person. And so just like waiting for the
Exactly.
right moment and waiting for the audience to be receptive, like allows your wisdom to really land with them. And I think what I've discovered as a projector as well is that like the invitation isn't meant to hold me back. It's just meant to protect my energy and let me know where to put my energy and when and who's ready for my insights. And we all have kind of different like energetic vibes or signatures is what we call them in human design. And as projectors, our energy is very penetrating and quite intense. Like we can lock into people and make them feel deeply seen. And it's such a tremendous gift, but you can imagine if people are not ready for that, it can feel like too much, and so it's just kind of like, channeling that powerful laser like energy into the right places and the right people. Clear?
Like I'm really bad at small talk. So,
Not really our vibe, it's like we go deep or we go home, it's just, so I think it's
yeah.
having people that are really ready for that because not everyone will be, and that's fine, and so just really noticing where you do feel really seen. And the other piece I would just add here is that, you know feeling recognized and seen as a projector is around feeling like authentically recognized and deeply seen. Like somebody might be like, you're great at this thing, but you're like, it doesn't really make me feel very seen and known. So what you're looking for is like when you're like, oh, you really see me on like a very deep level. So it's not just like any kind of recognition or any kind of invitation. It's one that gives you that deep, authentic knowing.
Yes, that totally makes sense.
Then we've got manifestors. Manifestors are here to be very innovative, disruptive, autonomous forces, often really gifted at getting the ball rolling and getting things started. Not necessarily here to do all the doing to keep a thing alive, but often here to like get a thing off the ground. They have a lot of energy at the beginning. They tend to thrive when they feel free, when they feel in control. And so really being in positions where that's the case. Their energy, like projectors, can be a little ebb and flow and more kind of creative bursts. But how it often happens for manifestors is they might have this period of inspiration and energy that lasts a couple of days, weeks, hours, and then they have to kind of pull back and rest. And it's so important to kind of be able to honor that. And their strategy is they're really here to initiate. They're not here to wait for anything to come to them. Like when they feel an urge arise within them, they're meant to follow it, even when they've never seen that thing done before. And it's also really important for them to keep people in the loop of what they're doing. Tends to feel quite unnatural, but tends to make their life a bit easier and able to manifest and make things happen with more flow. The final type is reflector. Reflectors tend to be very sensitive to their environments. And so it is so important for them to be quite ruthless about where they're spending time and who they're spending time with. They tend to be very fluid, where they will have days where they feel like projectors, like manifesting generators, like generators. And so their job is not to be just one thing or show up in just one way, but honor whatever feels like them that day. In the context of business, we call them evaluators just because they see and sense and feel things that so many people don't. And so it's really important for them to kind of be in spaces where their perspective feels really recognized and really invited in. And they really are meant to kind of take a lot of time before they move, before they commit to things and not jump into things spontaneously. So
Well, I have
high
to say,
level. Yeah.
I've profiled a lot of my doctor colleagues and
Well,
friends to see what their human designs are, and I haven't met a reflector yet. So it sounds to me like that's a kind of a more rare type.
it's about 1%. So you definitely know one. There's one I can imagine in your life somewhere, but they are much more rare. I profile celebrities a lot and like I wish I could profile more reflectors, but they are much more rare.
I think most people seem to be generators or manifesting generators, which makes sense.
It does
They're
make
a lot of
sense. It feels,
doers.
yeah, and it feels like there's a lot of capacity, it feels like is required to show up in a job like that. How does that work for you as a projector? Like, do you feel like you're able to take rests and does it feel like a sustainable way of working for you?
So, it's actually a good specialty, I think, for a projector because we don't work as many shifts and many hours a month as other doctors. And so, that, okay, when you go to work, you're there for 8 hours and you're going to be
Yeah.
on and you're not going to have a break. But then I know that after that, I'll probably have 2 days off or,
Yeah.
we just don't work that many shifts. And so I think it's actually ideal for a projector. And then
Mm,
while I'm on shift, I have a lot of little mental breaks that I do for myself. So
so
I'll
good.
go run up and down the stairs in the building, or I'll do I call it the extra long hand wash, where I'll just like wash my hands for a minute and just zone out. And I
Hmm.
do a lot to just kind of preserve my energy.
Smart. And it's a good reminder that even if you have to be kind of on call and available for long periods of time, carving out little moments of rest, and just space where it's like, I'm gonna go have tea, I'm gonna just go be outside and away from the people for a moment. You might be a new mom, you're like, I'm gonna go lay on the bathroom floor for 5 minutes, so just
Yeah.
like these little breaks, they might not be significant, but they can be really impactful.
No, definitely. And actually figuring out that I was a projector almost gave me more of that kind of permission to take
Yeah,
those breaks.
I love hearing that.
So I'm a 4-6 projector, and I was
Hmm.
wondering, what do those numbers mean?
Hmm. So in human design, there's an aspect of our design called our profile, and there are 12 possibilities. It's not correlated to type, so any type can be any profile. Our profiles are made up of 6 different numbers. And, without making this too complicated, I say that just so if you look yours up, you can kind of follow along. So I'm going to briefly go through maybe the 6 numbers. And
Okay.
so, for example, because you're 4-6, the ones that are relevant to you would be the 4 of the 6. There's more information based on the combination, but this will give you a high level, description of what it means. I'm a 6-2, so I would listen to the 6 and the 2. If you're a 1-3, listen to the 1 and the 3. So if you have a 1 in your profile, and I'm going to pause with yours because I want to hear your experience, but if you have a 1 in your profile, these people are very natural investigators. They're really here to kind of dive deeply in things and really kind of build a strong foundation and strong expertise. They often find security with doing that. Like they can feel really insecure if they don't feel like they know enough. So they need to take that time to dive deep on their own. And they're really here to be experts and authorities and masters in their craft. They often also are very introspective, need a lot of time alone to kind of explore and learn. They like to understand how things work. For 2s, they tend to be very natural hermits. They really need time and space alone, not exclusively, of course, but to recharge. And they also carry a lot of natural, innate gifts that they can't even explain. They're meant to lean into what comes easily and naturally, even when they can't explain how they do what they do. And often they can make themselves wrong for this. Like, can I actually get paid for this? Can I actually do this thing? It comes so easy. But the
Hmm.
answer is yes, that's exactly what you're meant to do. If you have a 3 in your profile, these people are very natural experimenters, entrepreneurs, like here to try things, make mistakes, learn what didn't work, keep improving. So really important to kind of embrace that trial and error process rather than making themselves wrong for not getting something right the first time. And that's true with relationships, business, friendships, all the things. And they're often so rich with wisdom because they've just tried it all and learned what works and what doesn't. So then the fours, this is going to be you. Community is so important for you. You know, the fours, I know you talked about visibility and maybe a fear of being visible. Like for you, you're really meant to be seen in your community and very influential in your community. Your opportunities are all meant to come from the people that you know, whether it is introducing you to a guest or somebody that you worked with in the past, you know, or it's important for you to kind of work with people that you want to be friends with. So ideally the other ER docs and people that you're working with are people that you're like, I want to be friends with you. Like I'm excited to deepen my connection with you. Like community is so important. You bring such a natural warmth and friendliness, and the quality of your relationships informs the quality of your life. And so just being so intentional about who you're choosing. And this is not about needing a huge community. This is about building the right community. How's that
That
feel?
totally makes sense.
Yeah,
And it's
cool.
funny because any opportunity that I've had has been through someone I've known. It's actually very rare for me to cold call anyone for anything.
I'm into. I just like, it's nice to just know that because often I'll hear what you just shared where like that's already happened, but then knowing this gives them more permission. And these are people often where they're like, oh my God, I don't want to go on a dating app. And they just like meet somebody through a friend or like start dating a friend. And like that tends to be a more natural way of connecting with somebody.
Yeah.
And I would also say in terms of romantic partnership, really good to be with people that you want to be friends with, are already friends with, and are really interested in kind of continue to deepen your friendship with, even when you are romantically partnered. The five, the fives are really here to be very practical, innovative, kind of like heretical problem solvers. Here to offer very innovative, new, different ways of seeing things, solving problems in really practical new ways. It's really easy for people to like assume that the fives can solve everything. And so it's important for them to be quite discerning about where they put their energy and not get lost in other people's expectations and desires for them. And really saying yes, kind of just to the problems they feel uniquely wired to solve and the problems that feel really exciting for them instead of kind of getting swept away and seduced by others' visions for them. The six is also you. So the six is really around being a very natural role model and teacher. You're somebody who can inspire trust in people, probably makes you really good at your job, and also really good at kind of pulling back and seeing these from a higher perspective. And really, honestly, just inspiring people through the way you live your life, through your own embodiment, through your own authenticity. The people with sixes tend to live their life in three phases. So I don't know if you've noticed this, you're in the second phase now. I am as well, where the first 30 years of your life was meant to be like trial and error galore, like just like trying things, experimenting, making mistakes, like not really time to figure it all out, but just to gather as much experience as possible. 30 to 50, where you are now, is really a time to kind of embody all the things you've learned, see things from a higher perspective, kind of invest your energy in what works. And you're really meant to hit your prime when you turn 50. And this is not because there's anything to wait for. It just means that it's meant to keep getting better and better and better. And you're meant to kind of become this very embodied example of authenticity where you inspire people to be themselves by just being your own self so fully.
I love that. And it totally makes sense because my first 30 years, even though, I went to school, I did all my medical training, all that, I still was like not really sure what I was doing. I was still trying a lot of different things and wasn't, fully convinced at any point of what I'm doing is right. And then once I hit 30, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm in this. I'm invested.
Yeah. It's just like there's often a real market shift at 30. It's so interesting.
I love that. Something that I always think about is decision making and how
Mhm.
we make decisions, and not just at work, but just in general. And so I found the inner authority to
Yeah.
be really helpful when it comes to that. And I was hoping you could explain that a little bit to us.
Absolutely. You know, I think that I love the profile, but I do think the authority is arguably one of the most impactful parts of our design because all of us are making decisions every day, you know, from what to eat, who to spend time with, which opportunities to say yes to, when to leave a relationship. And so often we can get really in our head about our decisions and try to kind of convince ourselves in or out of what we know to be right. And human design reveals the way that we can tap into what feels correct for us. And so we can make decisions reliably in a way that feels good every single time. And so let me just very, very briefly kind of go through the possibilities. There are 7 possibilities. Not everyone's available for each type, but if you look yours up, you'll see what yours is. So I'm going to start with yours, which is called wait for clarity, also known as emotional. It means that you might be somebody that has an initial instinct about something, but you're not designed to be spontaneous in your decision making. The best decisions for you are the ones that you sleep on, the ones that you feel into. So you are really kind of meant to make decisions after you felt into it for a while and it continues to feel right. In an ideal world, you're not making a decision from a super emotional place. I also have this authority, and I know what I've learned for myself is that when I'm on an emotional high, I'm very susceptible to saying yes to everything. And I'll kind of make all these like huge commitments very excitedly, and then I'll wake up the next day and I'm like, I don't want to do that, but like I needed space to pull back and see the whole thing and realize it wasn't for me. And so I will say it can feel annoying to wait, but I've learned in practice it's always worth it. Because when I make decisions in a very rash way, it creates a lot of chaos for others and for myself, but when I kind of wait and just give it a beat, often honestly just a day, I make decisions from a much calmer, clearer place. And then like I know that they're correct for me. And so waiting for that clarity for me has always felt worth it. So before I go into the other ones, I'm just curious, like, have you noticed that?
No, I'm just like cracking up because I'm the worst at being at a party, for example, and having a good time. And
Mm-hmm.
then like someone asks me to do something else, and I'll be like, oh yeah. And then I'll pull out a calendar and schedule it. And then the next day I'm like, why did I say yes to that? I don't have
Totally.
time for that. I don't want to do that.
You just need to be, it's just like, that sounds amazing. I'll let you know tomorrow, like, and just building that practice. And honestly, a lot of us need this time and a lot of us are being really rash and then very, very regretful. And so just kind of building in a bit of a buffer period to just like check in with yourself. I'm not saying your initial instinct is incorrect. My recommendation is that you just give yourself a beat to confirm that it is correct before you move forward with it.
And then just like, and I'm just thinking from like when I'm at work, I don't really get emotional about cases, but I feel like if I accidentally do, I need to probably just like pull myself out of that so I could just still listen to my gut and know what the next step is.
Yeah. Just not choose from that place. Just be like, okay, I see what's going on. I just like, I'm not going to make a commitment from this place. Like, I'm just feeling a lot and let me just like wait for my emotions to settle before I jump into it. So, some of the other options, there are some people that are trust your gut. They are meant to make decisions, and also known as sacral. They are meant to make decisions based on their gut feeling in the moment. It's a very visceral thing in their belly that either kind of like moves them towards or pushes them away from an experience or situation. The best way to access that is to have people ask them very specific questions. So for somebody that has that authority, instead of asking them like, what do you want to do about your next opportunity? I would ask them like, do you want to take this job? Like, do you want to go out for dinner or cook at home? Do you want to like go to the park today? Like when you pose things in that specific way, it helps them bypass their mind and drop them straight into their gut and be like, feels right, doesn't, So it's a really beautiful way to help them connect to that gut instant knowing that often comes before their mind. There are people called tune into your intuition, also known as splenic. Similarly, they're meant to be very spontaneous. It's not a gut feeling. It's more like a quiet whisper of an instinct or intuition. It's like a whisper they hear, a voice they feel, resonance, tingles, like very immediate, disappears very quickly. These people are incredibly sensitive to other people. And so sometimes they can get kind of swept away by other people's feelings about a decision. So it's good to kind of take a little bit of space from others to confirm their own intuition is the thing speaking to them. There are some people called tune into your willpower, also known as ego authority, and they are meant to make decisions based on what their heart is pulling them towards, what they have the willpower to make happen, what they feel motivated by, what they desire, and what they really, really want. It's important for them to feel like they're really taken care of in their decisions. There are some people called talk it out, also known as self-projected. They find clarity by saying things out loud, processing out loud, and just seeing how things feel when it comes out of their mouth. Talking to others for them is never about looking for advice from others. It's about having others serve as sounding boards for their own truth to emerge. There are two more. There's some called be in the right space and talk it out, also known as mental projectors or environmental. They are meant to kind of talk things out as well, but in a few different spaces with people they trust to kind of see what truth emerges over time. And finally, for reflectors, they are called wait a lunar cycle. They are meant to give themselves a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision. I know that that timeline is not always
Wow.
feasible. So my recommendation for them is just to make decisions from a place of clarity and not from a place of like urgency and pressure, and to kind of take the time that they need. And often in that waiting period, it is really good to kind of put themselves around people they trust and talk things out and kind of see what a truth emerges with time.
So those people need to make sure they have a good inner circle to talk to.
They really do. And people that understand them and give them
Yeah.
that space. I've done so many partnership sessions with partners of reflectors, and I think this is such a useful aspect for their partner to hear about, because like often their partner's like, I don't get it. Like, why aren't you as clear as I am so immediately, but they just need time. And part of the magic of time for them is it helps them disentangle all the things that are not theirs from what is, and helps them kind of really land in their truth.
Well, what I've seen is the few people that have been, I forgot what was the kind where the other one where you have to talk it out, the self projected,
Mm-hmm.
you have to talk it out. They're the ones at work that talk so much about cases, and everyone's like, why are they still talking about it? Make a decision.
They have
But
to.
when we figured that out, it's been like a light bulb, like, oh no,
Wow.
you are supposed to be talking. So, and that's how you're going to decide what to do next. And sure enough, like that's how they decide what to do next. So it's really liberating in a way because you're like,
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm not weird. That's how I think.
It is. And like, that's how they access their truth. And I just think that's such a powerful reminder, because it's so easy to be like, why are they doing it that way? And like, they're not doing it correctly because it's not the way that I do it. Then you discover like, oh, they're doing it perfectly for them. Like maybe I'm not going to be the right sounding board for them, but they need to go through this process and have the right sounding boards for them.
Exactly. Actually, I don't know if we're jumping ahead, but something that really fascinates me is teamwork and how different teams work together. And I don't know if you have any insights on this topic because I feel like it's such a good way to use human design.
It is. I told you before we started recording that I've been preparing a class today, but I spent the past 4 hours preparing a deck on how to bring human design into teams. And it is like some of my favorite work to do, because I think that human design is such a powerful tool to understand ourselves. And I think once we've begun to explore it in that way, it becomes such a powerful tool to understand the people close to us, whether it's our kids, our partners, or our collaborators. And I love working with teams, because I think so often we struggle or experience friction because we just don't understand how each person operates. And so, the magic of human design and teams is that you really kind of start to help people understand how to communicate with each other, how each person processes best, what their strengths are, where they can get taken off track, how they're impacting each other, and just how to work in a more cohesive, harmonious, functional way. And so it's an amazing tool within teams. And there are also even layers of human design where you can look at teams and be like, you can see where gaps are. You can be like, oh, I can imagine you're really struggling with this, and you kind of need that support or that kind of person. And so it just offers us so much very specific, very targeted, very useful insight to help people work much more effectively together. And so it's been really cool, in the 8 years I've been sharing human design, to see the interest and excitement around human design and teams really kind of increase.
Well, I think I need to take that class. That sounds
I
awesome.
know. I know. I'm teaching it tonight. Oh no, tomorrow. Not tonight. Thank God. But yeah, it's part of our membership. But it's just, I'm seeing a lot of people just really interested in stepping into that, And when I first started sharing human design in 2015, it was pretty out there for teams, but now it's like lots of teams are doing it because they see the value. And even if people are like a little bit averse to mystical stuff, they want to learn about themselves. So I think when human design is presented in a really effective way, like this is an amazing tool, but also just a tool, I think it allows people from, all ranges of mystic and not, to kind of really let it be a useful tool for them.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I was hoping you could explain is definition, because I've had a really hard time understanding that.
Of course. So, I'm glad you asked, because I think that definition is like so often an overlooked part of our chart, and it's such a useful one. And I think specific to your question around teams, like it really helps us know how to work and interact with other people more effectively. But I think it's also really useful with families. Like in a lot of partnership sessions, when they're getting stuck is often because they don't understand the difference in definition. It's the piece of our design that speaks to how we process. And so to give you guys a taste, there are 5 possibilities. There are layers underneath this, more nuance to it, but I'm going to present the 5 to keep it simple. So, and again, if you look up your chart, you will see all these things listed. So there are some people that are independent or single definition, and it basically means that they're very naturally independent, and they often like having space to kind of be in their own flow, process in their own space, may not love having lots of meetings throughout the day, like really want to have their independence honored, tend to kind of digest information pretty quickly. Then there are people like you that are collaborative, also known as split. And it means that one, you need a little bit of time to digest information, but two, like being around others, like gives you a lot of like wholeness and clarity. And so for you, like, I mean, you're going to get that inevitably in the work that you do. But I think like when you feel stuck, it's really good to just plant yourself around other people's energy. Like go work from a coffee shop or a cafe and kind of let yourself be activated in that way, and know that like you're not here to do it all alone. And and there was more that I'll share, but briefly, I was in a partnership session last week, and one of them was independent and one of them was collaborative. And they were so relieved to hear this because the one who was independent, like he just liked doing things on his own, and his wife was collaborative. And so whenever they were like trying to make a decision around something, she would come to him and like want to talk it through. And he would get so frustrated because all he wanted was to be in his own space and to kind of access clarity in that way. And they were just so relieved to hear this because they were like, oh, like we're just different. We just have different needs. And like where we're getting stuck is because like he wants her to be independent and she's looking for him to be collaborative. But like when they really understood how to honor those differences, like they were able to flow, and she was able to find other ways to get her connection needs met that were beyond her husband. And he was able to kind of like not be made wrong for his independence and have plenty of space to kind of be in his own flow in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's like a game changer for that couple.
Totally. They were just like, "What? Yes." Like again, like, to your earlier point, it's like that was not new information to them, but it was language and presented in a way that it allowed them to realize how different they were, and it gave them tools to actually begin to honor that, because they just like hadn't had that conversation. It was more just creating friction because they were like, "Why aren't you honoring my process?" So a few other examples of definitions. There are some people that are called synthesizing or triple split, and they're people that need a lot of freedom to kind of move their energy about and get stimulated by different spaces and people and groups. Often can feel like a little bit trapped or confined if they're in the same space with the same person all the time. There are people called quadruple or subjective. These people often like have their own way of doing things, and they're really here to like have their way of doing things honored and not here to be super adaptable or malleable. They often would need a lot of time to kind of digest information and kind of need a diversity of like really close relationships in their life that kind of pull out different expressions of them. And then finally, there's some called objective, and also known as none. And they are meant to just have the flexibility to kind of move their energy in and about different groups of people, pulling away when they need, kind of sampling different energies and not getting locked into just one. And again, having plenty of space and time alone when they need it. And so like you can start to see how knowing this can be really useful in your relationships and in your work environments. Say the example I shared of somebody having synthesizing or triple, like they're trapped if they're in the same space all the time with the same person. So they might be, during COVID, like at home with their partner and feeling really trapped and feeling a lot of guilt around it, when like nothing's wrong with their partner. They just need to go for a walk, and they just like need to have a different interaction, not because this person's incorrect, but like their system requires more movement. So I think it just helps us, understand our unique way of processing and honor it. And, that can create a lot more flow in our personal relationships, but also in the way that we work with other people.
I mean, that's such a good way of explaining it. I feel like I finally understand it now.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I know it's such a misunderstood piece. Like in a course that I taught last year, people were like, had been studying human design for years, and they were just like, "Oh, like I didn't realize this was actually like really useful." So it's I always bring it up in partnership and team sessions. I just find when it comes to interacting with others, it's like one of the first pieces I look at.
Well, it's just like it totally resonates for me personally too, because I always think, oh, why can't I just be at home and I'll just, work on my research or this or that, be by myself. 2 days in, I'll be like, okay, I got to go back to work now. And the minute I walk in and I'm just surrounded by everyone, I just get a smile on my face and I feel better.
So good for you. And you've also got so many pieces in your design that contribute to that. You've got that. You also have the 4 in your profile, which is all around kind of people and relationships. One of your channels, also known as strengths, is the strength of community. It means that like you're really here to be around others, like in person. Your ideal environment is called kitchens, which is about being in like buzzy spaces where it feels like things are happening and you're at the center of it all. So it just feels like all of those things conspire to have you need that.
Well, speaking of environment, I know that's kind of a technically a smaller piece. People don't get into that quickly, but I love that one. I love environment and digestion. I don't know why,
Totally. Oh my
but
God, they're so cool.
they're just so useful, I feel like, in real life. So I was wondering if you could explain some of those to us.
Of course. I think that this is a piece that we don't recommend getting into immediately, often because it's just like It doesn't make sense at first. Like, often when you're playing with your design for a while, it, like, lands when you experiment with it, but when you kind of jump into it immediately, it can be like you can take it really literally, and it can be a little bit less useful. Like, for example, your environment is kitchens, and this does not mean that you gotta, like, live in a kitchen, but I think actually the ER is a really perfect example of kitchens. Kitchens is basically like a really kind of active, buzzy environment where it feels like you're at the center of things and things are happening and transforming around you? And so, like, do you feel that environment in your work?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like a busy restaurant at dinner time. And
Totally.
actually my other job was the other thing I wanted to really be when I was in college was a photojournalist, and I worked at our student newspaper. And so being in a newsroom was like heaven to me, and it was just that same thing.
Totally. Yes, exactly. And so it can show up in so many different ways. I've, like, worked with, like, a friend of mine, or a client of mine. He like he's like a branding consultant, but he, like, took a bartending job at night because he just, like, loved being in the buzz of it all. I, like, worked with a woman who, was a photographer for weddings, and she just, like, loved dropping in, and kind of like going to weddings and being in the heat of it all. So it's such a cool environment. So some other examples of environments are, people have caves, which is really about having kind of safe, protected, cozy spaces that they can kind of, like, pull into and tuck into. Some people have something called mountains. This is not in order, but mountains is really about, like, elevation and kind of being up high. Like, if you're living in New York City, not living on the ground floor, like having a view, having perspective, pulling back. There are some people that have markets, which is really around, actually about kind of becoming really good friends with people that you work with, and kind of like being around people that there's, like, business and commerce and things happening. There are some people that have valleys, which is really about the sensitivity to the acoustics of where you live and really kind of liking how things sound where you live. Like, I had a client who moved from LA to London, and she was like, I just love, like, hearing the police on the horse and, like, the streets, like, that noise is so satisfying to me. There are some people that have shores, which is really around kind of being on the edge of things, like on the in between. I had a client who, her favorite place was the porch, where it was like inside outside, kind of like half in, half out. That's a really beautiful example of shores. Digestion is another piece of our design that speaks to how we best digest food. It is not going to let you know what food to eat. It's going to let you know perhaps the environment that you digest best in, or kind of the conditions of the food that would be best for you. Some people are meant to be really simple, like keep, like, ingredients separate. It's not having like a mixed salad, but it's like, okay, I'm going to have, like, my greens and then my cauliflower and then my salmon. There are some people that it's all about the temperature of their food, eating food that's either really warms them up or eating food that, like, really cools them down. There are some people that are meant to be very picky, not diversify their food, but more like, I love this smoothie and I will drink it every morning until I feel inspired to change. You and I are kind of the opposites, but within the same one. I'm nervous and you're calm. And so, like, on my side of the spectrum, it's really important to feel like there's, like, stimulation in my environment, and it's good for me to not, like, sit too long and not be too sedentary, like eating when I'm standing up. Going for a walk after I eat, before I eat is all really good for me. Yours is calm. So when you're eating, it's actually best to, like, not eat in a buzzy restaurant, to kind of like eat when things are really calm, to have a kind of calm space to eat in. And then let me talk about the other ones briefly, and then I would love to hear your experience of this. Other options are, some people are really sensitive to, like, the sounds when they eat. So, like, eating where they like the music, the voices they hear, what's coming in their ears is really important. Some people digest best when the sun is up. Some people digest best when the sun is down. So some people might want breakfast as their biggest meal, dinner is their biggest meal. So you can see there's so much variation. Some people have strongest senses. I mean, we all have strongest senses. Like, some people might need to, like, eat food that smells good. Other people might need to eat food that looks good. Other people might need to eat food that feels good. So there's just so much specificity around how we can eat and digest in a way that works for us. So how does calm feel to you as a concept?
Okay, so I can't eat at work. I
Makes
can't
sense.
digest the food,
It'd be
but
great for my digestion.
yeah, you should come hang out with me
Let's
at
come there.
work and eat,
Yeah.
like, you'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
But during the COVID pandemic, when we were at, like, peak COVID times, we weren't allowed to eat in the ER, and technically you're never allowed to eat in the ER, but we have our little rooms that we do our charting in where we eat.
Mhm.
So, but during that time it was very strict. You couldn't eat, but for the first time ever it was accepted that you would go outside and take, like, an actual 10 to 15-minute break and eat and come back in. And I actually loved that. So even though it was like peak COVID, totally crazy, for the first time we could take breaks. And
Yeah.
so when I would go out and eat, and then I actually digested my food and I felt a lot better and I was in a better place. And now that's gone and everybody's just like eating in the charting areas again. And a lot of times, like, I won't really eat at work because the food won't digest.
No, so crazy, but that, it's so good to know that and just like create an environment of calm where you can be. And I find that people that have your digestion, they often will like end up eating before they go out to dinner, you know, or like if they have a really bustling life at home, it's like they kind of like eat in peace and then sit at their dinner table.
Yeah, like I'll eat before I go to my shift tonight, actually.
You're doing it well.
Well, and this has really helped. Otherwise, it's like it was one of the things that kind of helped me to sort my body out too, basically.
Yeah, I know. It's so, again, weirdly specific, but in a way it's really useful. And I find often with digestion specifically, people often really like recognize it in the way that they ate when they were young. Like, I talked about one of the examples being simplicity, like separating ingredients, which sounds like really weird. It's like all my ingredients will be separate. But often when I sit with people that have this, they were like, oh my God, I did that all the time when I was little. Like every ingredient would have its separate place. And that's how I always ate. And then I was like, oh, this is weird. I should like mix it all together. But like often we're really intuitively doing it. I talked about the one where it's around what's coming in your ears and sound. I had a client whose son was 3 years old. And like basically whenever she gave him food, he was like, can you turn on the radio? Like, can you turn on music? Like he just like always needed something. And I wasn't obviously telling him his human design, but like he just kind of knew that he needed like some background sound to eat well. So it's fascinating how, and this is true of every element of our design. It's like when we know ourselves, we often do all these things very intuitively, and human design just validates it. But as we grow older, we can often make ourselves wrong for these things. And so human design can bring us back to it.
It's so true. Actually, my niece is the only other projector in the family. I'm in a
Oh,
family of generators and manifesting generators, and almost all of them are 3-5 manifesting generators.
wow.
Yeah. So my niece, she is the other projector. And so when my sister and I kind of figured that out, we kind of explained it to her, and she just turned 14 and she's like, see,
Mm.
that's why I always tell you guys I need to rest and I need my breaks.
Oh,
And so now it's like she has
she
permission. We're
knows.
like, you
Yeah.
can have your breaks.
It's so useful to know. I mean, honestly, I'm a projector, as I shared, and my dad is a projector. And I just remember he was so good at taking all the breaks when I grew up. And like he would like always hang back and I would be so pissed. And it was just like, you gotta keep going. But like learning this, I was like, oh, he was doing so well. We just like made him so wrong for that. But he's just like he's being an excellent projector. So it is so amazing to hear all the ways in which people are honoring that.
Now, when you initially look up a human design chart, it does look complicated. You see all the centers, and
Yeah.
I don't think we have time to get into all those
Yeah.
centers, but is there anything specific you feel like people should pay attention to or watch out for, or just focus on these other pieces first?
The centers, like, it is a little bit, it can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but definitely one of my favorite parts of human design. I think when you look at that chart, you will likely have at least one white shape. Not everyone will, but the vast, vast majority do. And those areas represent where you are the most sensitive to other people's energy and where you can get the most taken off track. And so these are areas that can be areas of like extreme wisdom and learning for you, but also areas of extreme challenge. And so I really recommend digging into what those things are because it just helps you understand it. Like if I'm to use your chart as an example, have you dug into your undefined centers?
Not
A
that
bit,
much.
not that much. So, for example, you have an undefined root center. And so what that means in the context of human design is that you're somebody who can be very sensitive to other people's stress. And so again, this is probably a big lesson for you working in the ER. Like if you're around people that feel stressed out, you can feel it very intensely in your own body. And so, a big lesson for you is that not all the stress you feel is your own, and taking space and time is really important to kind of let that stress move out of your body. But also where this can show up in challenging ways is kind of being in a rush and feeling like you have to apply a sense of pressure and urgency to everything. Like everything needs to happen right now. And so a big lesson for you is like really learning how to slow down and know that like not everything deserves your urgency. Not everything needs to happen right now. So understanding what those areas are can be really useful so you don't get lost in energy that's not your own, but you also know how to kind of work with these areas and not get lost in the shadow. Does that make sense for you?
That is so helpful. Yeah, that
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
So understanding all those areas is really transformational. And then the areas that are shaded are areas where you're actually impacting others with your energy. And so like one area that you have shaded is your emotional center. And so like, people feel what you're feeling. Like you are on an emotional high and it can be like such a beautiful, uplifting thing to be around. If you're in a low, people feel that too. So it can be useful to realize the ways in which you are impacting others with your energy so you can be conscious of it. I share this quality with you. And so I know when I'm like in an emotional low, like not always the best time to like go be with others because as much as I think I'm like playing it super cool, my emotions pour out of me and are felt, and so I think understanding that has allowed me to navigate that more intentionally and more consciously. So I think like knowing those areas where we impact others and knowing where we can be impacted is so useful because so often we kind of get pulled off track in those areas, and knowing what each of those areas are helps us come back into alignment.
Yeah. No, that's like such a good explanation. And honestly, that's one of the things I love about you, Erin, is that you take these really complex concepts and you can just distill them into normal English that anybody can understand.
Thank you. I mean, I love doing it, but I feel like it took me a long time studying the system, and I'm still and always studying it. But I feel like once we build a strong foundation in things, we can like really just simplify them. I feel like the more we understand them, the simpler they become. So I think it's been really fun for me to really discover simple, useful ways of sharing human design because it can be so overwhelmingly complex in ways that are unhelpful. And I think that human design can be so extraordinarily useful. And so the whole vision behind our brand is just making it super useful and simple and accessible to people.
And pretty. Good graphic design.
And pretty. I know. You should look at our new blueprint page. We just
Oh,
launched
I
it
can't
today and it's
wait.
so much prettier. Yeah.
I'm married to a graphic designer, so we appreciate graphic design
Honestly, it's
around
all my
here.
partner. I can take no credit. He's got a real vision. I'm just like,
That's awesome.
beautiful. Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. Since this is human school, I have to ask you, what is a recent lesson you feel like you're learning right now?
Hmm. I feel like, I mean, I'm a new mom to a 7-month old, and it just feels like there's just like a whole new world that opens up as a parent and a whole new host of lessons. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the lesson that I'm really learning is I guess it's not really a lesson. It's more just like what a gift it is to witness a human life. And it's just like so wild that we were all a baby one day. And like what a responsibility it is to be responsible for somebody who's so dependent and just like needs you for
Right?
all the things. And I think like also a big lesson I'm learning is like what how I don't know, wildly our bodies are designed. Like I'm so in awe every day that like my body can like give my daughter the fuel that she needs, and also that my body birthed her. I'm just like I can't like get over that because I actually don't feel like I was an active participant in it. I feel like my body was just like grew her and then birthed her, and I was like, what is going on? So I think I'm just kind of mystified by biology.
No, I mean, I think about that all the time too. And mine is almost 6, and I'm like, you came out of this? Like,
How?
what?
I know. Like, how did my body build you? And like, she just got her two top teeth, and I'm like, where'd they come from? Like, how do
Oh,
you have these two
yeah.
little teeth? Like, it's really. So I feel like I'm just being so confronted every single day with like, just yeah, what it is to witness a human life.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. It's been pretty fun.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Tell
Pleasure.
everyone where we can find you. And also, we have a discount code for your blueprints.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Erin Claire Jones and Human Design Blueprint. I would say look up your design for sure at humandesignblueprint.com. If you want to know and dive into your unique design, the best place is the Blueprint book, which is a 55 plus page guide all about your unique design. So it goes through all the pieces we talked about today, the centers and the channels and the profile and type, strategy, authority. And it's meant to really just be a book all about you that you can keep returning to over time. And that's at humandesignblueprint.com. I also offer sessions. And if you're like, this is the best, I want to learn all the things human design, we have an amazing suite of classes that we launched recently. And we're about to launch another live round of our course if you want to learn and study human design with me.
That's also awesome. I'm actually thinking about maybe joining the
Oh my
course.
God,
See?
please join. We honestly just like, had a meeting today and we're like, we're going to like re envision it in so many exciting ways. Like, I am so excited for this round. So it's going to be great.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
I know. I'd
Thank
love
you
to have
so
you.
much.
Oh, and the discount code is Human School.
Yes. and I'll put it in the show notes so everybody can see it. And I will say, definitely follow Erin and Human Design Blueprint on Instagram. It's like the best Instagram follow. I save your posts all the time because they're so useful.
I'm so glad to hear that. It was such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too. Please like, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. And again, you can find us at Human School Podcast on Instagram. I'd like to thank Dr. Zac Efron for the theme music. And I'd just like to make a general disclaimer that any of the institutions I work for, including Community Regional Medical Center, UCSF Fresno, and American Ambulance, have nothing to do with any of my thoughts or opinions. And so we'll kindly leave them out of this. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.